Hi there, welcome for joining another episode. I'm glad I heard that. Today we have my friend, Jeff Lido, and recently we've both agreed that we are friends, so that's been a great moment for us. And we're going to be sharing a little bit about Jeff's passion for helping people get righting their financial ship, and also about generosity and how he is his heart has grown because of that. Jeff, thanks so much for coming by today.
My pleasure, Dave.
Great. So Jeff and I, our relationship, we started, I would say this, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but we invited them to our small group probably 6 years ago.
About 2014, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So almost 8, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, I feel like at that point, your wife was definitely interested in a small group. You were open to meeting new people, but like small group thing was all right. So you went as being just a good spouse, and hey, yeah, I'll give it a try. And then from there, developed a little bit of relationship, and that was the first year we were taking men on a mission trip to Mexico, and I just needed guys to go, and so I asked the guys in my small group, and Jeff said, I'll go. And that was a little bit that was outside of your comfort zone at that time, correct?
More than a little bit, yes.
Why did you ever say yes to that invitation?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess if I pondered it, I didn't have a great reason to say no. I'm generally a little bit more adventurous than average, I would say, and so just getting to experience something different in a different part of the world was, interesting enough to me to say yes. So see what it's all about. Plus, you're such a good salesperson as well. Yeah.
I left you with no option. And since then, you haven't missed a Juarez trip.
I have not.
Yeah, and it's definitely been a great thing for us and so forth. And I know, especially for us as guys, getting to have an experience like that together, that's where our relationship really started to move more towards the friendship, and just ended up becoming a lot more fun and so forth.
Well, and you took me to Cattleman's. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that restaurant really is. It's special in so many ways. The Cattleman's in Fayetteville, Texas, not the corporate Cattleman's. All right, and so as you and I have gotten to know each other, what is, we've talked about this many times, but kind of fill everyone in, what do you do for your career?
So my official title is a Certified Financial Planner Professional, TM. So that mark, if you will, or that designation covers the gambit of really any financial topic that you could really think of, and more importantly, how to weave them all together in order to really holistically look at a household's financial life. And you have to have a heart for helping people meet their goals, and everybody wants to have a comfortable, solid retirement, and so helping people get onto that path and succeed on that path for their entire retirement is just so rewarding. But really, it's about meeting the people where they are, identifying what kind of financial situation that they're in. I've spent lots of time digesting, a lot of the Dave Ramsey, of discussions, right? Because, at the end of the day, in order to be able to save, in order to be able to service, your household and whatever debt you may have, and then to truly save, for your future as well, it does all come down to that dirty B word that people instinctually hate. And I'm not going to swear on here, but it is the budget. So most people are of course very resistant to getting as analytical as it might take. The good news is you don't have to do that, but there is some work, and I make a partnership with people to say I will meet you in the middle. I'm not going to ask you to do all of the work, nor do I feel that I should be doing all the work for you either. And so there has to be a common ground that we both agree to, and if you do your part, I will do my part, and we will take the time necessary in order to formulate a plan that will lead to success for you. And it all sounds good, and it works many, many times. It doesn't work all the time, unfortunately, because people are people, and sometimes they're on automatic pilot, and it's pretty difficult to get out of that mode.
Yeah, so the people are people idea is, I think part of this too is, in order to get to new places, you have to do new things, and so old habits need to change, right? I need to do some things differently. I think that's one of the things that you gotta be honest about, and my goal now as I get older is to change those habits incrementally. Because I know I need to get into a better spot or make better choices, right? So, and so I do that. But I know when we went through the financial peace stuff, the thing that was really helpful for me and Kristen, we never really, our tensions in our marriage and our fights, they weren't knockdown drag-outs or anything like that. That's really not how Kristen's wired up, and so so it's not fun to fight with someone who doesn't want to fight that way, right? We never really did that. But I do know that the tension that we experienced, the most tension that we experienced was always around money, right? And that's all data, that's all research. A lot of people, you get lost financially. Number one reason, right, we always talk about it is there's no great financial education, right? Like that's not a thing that's done in the schools and it's not done in the homes, right?
No.
So, there's no financial education. So, how do you even know, like what you don't know, kind of a deal. And then you get into the adulting, right? And then now here I am, and it's like I just didn't even know where my money's going. And I think that's the problem, like for a lot of us, Jeff, is like when we're lost, we don't even know we're lost, right? And so when someone's lost, that first step is basically finding out. You're telling me just like, how lost are you, right?
There has to be something that is, bringing them through the door in the first place. If you have this goal in mind, my job is to educate you on how to get to that finish line, right? Because instinctually people know how to manage their money. It comes through the door. I pay all my bills. We have whatever debt that we have, and we reset for the next 2 weeks or next month, whatever your pay period is. To take it beyond that, and then even having those additional conversations about areas of your life that you may not be thinking about. Retirement savings certainly is one that I focus on quite a lot. Well, how can you not only address those, but even identify what that potentially takes, right? So there is a lot of knowledge that I do have to, imbibe onto people to make sure that they start thinking with a different mindset. And again, they're generally open and willing because that's why they came in to see me in the first place.
Right, and then as people get their ship righted, as they start to make progress, they accomplish their goals. One of the cool things that I didn't quite understand about money is really the idea is that when you're good at it and handling it, you get to be generous, right? In a lot of different ways. Generous to your family, generous to your friends, generous to people you've never met before for all these different reasons. And so that's one of the things that I've kind of appreciated about you is like how you part of what you're doing is, even personally, is that you really enjoy being generous, right? Now, back to what we started in our friendship. When you and I were getting to know each other, I think you the way you would describe it to me, and correct me if I'm wrong again, but you were open to this idea of being a believer, but you weren't quite sold on it, right? It wasn't like free. You didn't know where you were at, right?
Yep.
Okay. Over time, you have moved towards, no, this isn't Carrie's faith, right? This is your faith now. And let's talk about that for a minute because I want to put you on the spot. How did that change for you? How did your faith change?
Yeah, my story is not dissimilar from a lot of other folks out there. Was raised in a Christian Catholic household. Mother was very engaged. Took us to church every Sunday. Dad stayed home and read the paper. So good for him. So the first opportunity that I had, going off to college, I did step away, of course, and really didn't give it much of another thought until Carrie and I got married and our daughter Josie came along, right? So trying to find a preschool for her was really what accelerated this, and we ended up finding a Christian preschool above the public school options that were near us. And so that kind of started the conversation of, well, if we're sending her to this church for school, might be a good time for us to start talking about getting back into our own faith journey. And we had conversations about it, and Carrie was definitely more interested than I was, but didn't force me, which I appreciate. So, we did start attending, and it was fine. I wouldn't say that I was against it, but kind of 1 foot in, right, testing the waters. And so once we ended up moving to this area, did the normal thing and started church shopping around, and ended up here at Faith specifically because of the children's ministry, right? Not because of the offerings for us as parents, right? And I guess, Dave, I would probably have to admit that you were probably one of the ones, most responsible for getting that kind of second foot back into the door, because you did seek us out, and you were so welcoming, and you didn't push, right? And you had a lot of the same kinds of mannerisms that I would like to present to people too, to say this is available. If you're open to it, I would like to talk to you about it and see if we can go deeper into that relationship. And here's a great opportunity for you to see even some of the things that we as a church do here with small groups and with the trips, the mission trips as well. And so it definitely wasn't a light switch, that flipped on. It was over time and lots of different experiences that kind of led me back in, right? So if you'd been the high pressure salesman, right, and here drink the Kool-Aid, I probably wouldn't be here.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's just cool for me to hear. You're an adult, right? You have been for a while. You knew what you were doing. Prior to marrying Carrie, you had your career defined. You were working on those things. You're developing your clientele. You knew you wanted to help people with their money long before you had both feet in, as far as following Jesus. You establish yourself. You work in your practice. You build relationships with your clients. You're stabilizing yourself financially. All these things. Meanwhile, so you know what you're doing with your money. You're giving it away. But meanwhile, your faith is growing and you're being encouraged. So how does that change what you think about generosity?
Yeah, it's an evolution, right? So what's the proverb, right? When I was a child, I thought about childish things, right? Yeah. And when I became an adult, I had to put those away and start, thinking about, the other things that are required of you as an adult or something like that. I don't know the proverb all that well, but, early on before, first married, I should say, and then, early in my career as well. And you don't have all those resources, right? You have goals and you have things that you want to accomplish. And yeah, the generosity wasn't great back then. It really wasn't, because my faith wasn't strong, either. So all of those other priorities of, marriage, home, family, were all way at the top. And generosity, if it was even on my radar, it wasn't from a monetary standpoint, right? It was still more the time, because I did enjoy doing that, and it's something I had more in abundance, at that time. So, as most people do, you grow and you build, and I have in my career, and so the financial rewards came along with that, and the thinking surrounding the generosity certainly changed, from more of just giving of time. But in a very narrow focus, to now I have a lot more opportunities available to me, so really from the church and the experiences here. And then trying to make sure that you set a good example for your children as well. I mean, that is certainly a big part of it too. So do I teach my children about finance? You betcha. Do I teach them about, the generosity that we try to provide, in our family to others, and how we do that without, getting too complicated? Yes, I do want that to be visible to them so that they can see that it is an important part of our lives and what we do. So and it certainly will continue to grow and change over time, right? I don't believe that you're ever done with that, right? Because if you set that up when you're 20, and here I am in my 40s and it's the same, well, have I learned anything?
Right.
Has anything changed?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I would tell you that today I am a much different person in many, many ways, right? And including in faith, and including in that generosity of time and finances as well than I was back then. Never would have thought, any of those things back then, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate that you talk about this evolution idea, which is the fact that we're going to be growing and figuring these things out. And even you, as who is a professional money manager, how you see and view money is going to change over time, and what you are going to accomplish with it. That's a great thing, because it's a very open to the process of what God wants to do with it. And that's really that's a cool thing. And in your generosity, one of the things you have in your budget, right? You and Carrie set aside a portion of money besides what you give to the church and all these things, just to give away. And you sometimes you don't know what that's for, right?
Mm-mm. No. So what ends up happening is throughout the year, and especially at the end of the year, so I'm not unlike a lot of people who in December, a lot of that giving does, eventually find a home. But if something comes up during the year, which has certainly, you have the available funds to be able to distribute that to whatever the need is, if you feel that it's a worthy cause, right? So yeah, being able to say, okay, well, I don't have to rob from Peter to pay Paul for this thing over here, and then worry about that later, which the amount of stress that creates for people is sometimes quite large. But just to say, yep, this is just part of the process, and so the funds are here and available. They just haven't been distributed yet, and I want to be able to do that, so I can.
And I think that's such a cool way for our faith to grow, that you are actually putting away money to give away, and you don't know who, when, or why. And so you and Carrie are in this position for the leading of God to say this needs help, and you go, we can do part of that for that person, or we can do part of that for them. That's a pretty neat thing to be able to get to. And like you say, it's not stress, it's just fun.
No, and not to get too far off into the weeds, but in my industry, there are actually financial products available designed specifically for that giving purpose. Mm-hmm. And so if you are making that part of your process, in your budget, right, anyway, and so the funds then are available because you have, put them there, and then choosing to distribute them whenever you decide, it's a wonderful mechanism to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's really cool. And being here at the church, to know, I've seen some pretty cool things, right, from generosity and so forth. And to have someone to say, hey, I can't go on that trip because of my health or because of my life stage, but I want to pay for someone to go on that mission trip. It's like, and things like that are just like, and the cool thing is they never want to be known. They don't want to be, right, all these things are going on, but I get to see that because of my position here. And it's like that's super cool. And to know that that's what, when you are financially stable, when you have a plan, when you're working the plan, you get to think like that. That's pretty cool. So I appreciate you stopping by and talking about money and talking about your faith with us. And I guess I just like to say, hey, thanks for the friendship. I've been pretty satisfied with it so far.
Well, don't think that you've gotten more out of it than I have. So.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, Jeff. All right, and so like I said, we are so glad you stopped by today. And so important to Corey and the analytics. If you can just smash that subscribe button and then click the like, give us a thumbs up. Feel free to comment about this. Jeff's very thin-skinned, so please nothing about his content. You can rip on mine, but he really can't take anything because he's a fragile individual. Thanks so much for stopping by.